What if I told you that World War III almost started because of one man, a blinking red light, and a terrifying moment of hesitation? And what if that same man saved the world by doing absolutely nothing? This isn't fiction. This is a true story, and one of the closest the world has ever come to total nuclear annihilation. It was September 26, 1983. The Cold War was at its peak. The United States and the Soviet Union had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the planet many times over. Tensions had been rising for months. Just weeks earlier, the Soviets shot down a Korean passenger jet, KAL-007, killing all 269 people aboard, including a U.S. congressman. The world was on edge. Paranoia was everywhere. And in the heart of the Soviet missile warning system, a man named Stanislav Petrov was about to face an impossible decision. Petrov was a 44-year-old lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces. On that September night, he was stationed in a secret command bunker outside Moscow. His job monitored the early warning satellites for signs of a U.S. missile attack. At 12:40 a.m., the system screamed to life. One missile, then two, then five. The screen showed a full-scale nuclear assault launched from the United States. Protocol demanded that Petrov immediately report the incoming missiles to his superiors. That would have triggered a retaliatory strike. Soviet nuclear missiles fired at American cities, but something didn't feel right. Petrov hesitated. The satellite data said the attack was real, but there were no corroborating radar signals, just the satellites. Why would the U.S. launch only a handful of missiles? Why not go all in if it were truly a first strike? Petrov decided it didn't make sense, and so he did nothing. He broke protocol. He told his commanders that it was a false alarm. For 15 nerve-wracking minutes, the world hung on the edge of destruction. Petrov waited for impact. If he was wrong, Soviet cities would soon be vaporized. But nothing happened. No explosions, no mushroom clouds. The warning was, in fact, a glitch. Sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds had fooled the satellite system. Had Petrov followed orders, it would have triggered a full Soviet response, and most likely a U.S. counterstrike. Hundreds of millions dead. Civilization, as we know it, gone. Instead, one man's intuition and refusal to blindly trust technology prevented a global catastrophe. The irony, Petrov wasn't praised. He was questioned, reprimanded for not properly documenting the incident, and eventually pushed into early retirement. The story didn't come to light until years later, after the fall of the Soviet Union. Petrov never saw himself as a hero. He often said, "I was just doing my job." But the truth is, his calm skepticism saved the world. Experts now call the 1983 false alarm one of the most dangerous moments in modern history. Even Ronald Reagan, weeks later, watched a fictional film about nuclear war, The Day After, and was so shaken that he began to rethink U.S. nuclear policy. Behind closed doors, both the U.S. and Soviet governments started re-evaluating their early warning systems, adding more layers of verification and creating better hotlines between leaders, all because of a man whose name most people never knew. Stanislav Petrov died in 2017. There were no statues, no parades, just a quiet funeral and a legacy that lives in the shadows of history. But imagine this. If you're watching this video, if the world you know still exists, it's partly because one man chose not to push a button. Let that sink in. We like to think the fate of the world rests in the hands of presidents, generals, and powerful institutions. But sometimes it rests with a single human being. With doubt, with courage, with a moment of silence. If this story shook you, share it. Let more people know about Stanislav Petrov, the man who saved the world by waiting. And subscribe for more stories history tried to forget.